I think sometimes what happens is once the first round of funding happens and that business starts to grow, if the founder has not kept their investors with them in that journey, the chance of investors reinvesting or recommending investment is lower, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to feel like I've given my money to something and then I hear nothing, right? Even if there are problems, there's going to be roadblocks. Every business has it, including the biggest businesses in the country have roadblocks right now, right? So you're going to face roadblocks. You're going to face bumps along the journey. You have to keep your investors with you.
Yeah.
Right? You have to respect the money they've given you. If you don't do that, you know what? It's not just this investor. It's a network.
So there is a role that founders have to play for this ecosystem to keep growing.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also that the kind of mentality I was telling you about. You cannot be entitled to that money.
Yeah.
Right? You have to honor it. Right? You have to respect that there's investment. Somebody external has put trust into you.
Yeah.
Right? And that's when you get your next round of funding. So in most, let's say, mature ecosystems, once an angel investor's kind of round is finished, that's when they generally get to like the venture capital, early stage venture capital kind of funding. That's still in its nascency in Botswana.
Yeah.
Right? There is a Africa-based, there's like 2 or 3 funds. There's one relatively larger one who's doing incredible work based out of Cape Town, who's invested into Botswana.
Yeah.
Right? So it does exist on the continental level. And I think that's what I feel is going to be the future. The number of VCs, early stage VCs in Botswana may be limited, may be small, the ticket sizes may be small. But what it should be is that angel investment and maybe a follow-on round funding should be able to get you to a size where you've conquered Botswana.
Yeah.
Or you've conquered Botswana to the extent whereby you're so sure of your product, you can start going into Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, South Africa, right? And I always say South Africa like that because the level of competition you hit when you go to South Africa is different to the rest of the continent, right? They're very, very aggressive,
Yes.
right? But to some extent, it is, for lack of a better word, the holy grail also, because there's a lot of money there, right? It's one of the biggest economies on the continent. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of old money there. There's a lot of investment capital. There's VC fund money. There's private equity money. So as you're growing your business and you're going through the different stages, you finish your seed round, you go towards the Series A round, and you're going towards the Series B round. The minute you talk about Series A and B, Botswana is too small. Right?
So what do we need to do to grow this ecosystem from the early stage? Because I'm getting the understanding that it makes sense more to have your early stage or angel investing because there's a lot of risk, which is not attracting the type of investors that we would like to have moving into venture capitalism and these higher series. So what do we need to do? Is it at a government level that we need to do something? Is it from the perspective of the investors?
My point always with government is government plays an incredible role with the ecosystem because they put in the rules and regulations by which we all operate, right? So an enabling regulatory environment compared to a disabling or controlling regulatory environment is one of the things that government could do, right? And in some ways then allow businesses to operate within market forces, right? What can happen is you sometimes have certain businesses supported over other businesses, even though from a merit basis, the other business may actually be a better business.
Yeah.
So then what happens is artificially this other business grows, and then when the support disappears, it crashes.
It crashes, yeah.
Right? While a business which is based on its product and its merit and its pricing and the likes, it will grow organically, or it will grow at the rate that the founder is able to grow it, right? To the extent, so what I feel is you've got to use Botswana for a few things. One, as a sandbox. Get your idea and your product to a stage where you know this will be competitive on the continent, right? To ensure that your supply system into your product. Right now, this is, I'm saying, if you need supplies. If you're a tech business, it's different, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a tech business, it's about your platform, right? Where have you housed your tech system? How portable is your tech system? Will it work with different legal frameworks, right? So there's a few other kind of factors. Is the problem you're trying to solve existing in other places? Generally, our problems are the same throughout the continent. Okay, all right. I'll be honest as well, and because I'm seeing some of these businesses, especially coming out of Nigeria and Kenya, they started to try solve problems on the ground, right? But it's the same problem elsewhere. Like there was one business that I saw from Nigeria. They set up a pension scheme for the informal sector, right? Because Nigeria has a huge informal sector. Well, so do we,
Yeah.
right? Yes, maybe numbers wise, it's not the same. But imagine somebody who's running the tuck shop down the street, right? Now has the ability to say, oh, you know what? For $2-3 a month, I'll get a little bit of health insurance and I'll get a pension plan so that at some stage everybody gets old, right?
Yeah.
And I have to stop. At least I've put some money aside every month that's going to give me pay. And their whole thing is, you know what? There are, I don't know, 10% people who are working in the formal sector. There's 90% working in the informal sector. All the other pension companies are going after the 10%. I'm going to go and conquer the 90%.
Yeah.
And my risk, and insurance is all about risk, right? So it reduces my risk. It's the same problem that exists here. It's the same problem that exists in Namibia. So if you start a business that thinks in that way, right? And this is why I was saying, what do you do in Botswana? Use it as a sandbox. Generate the idea. Once you've generated the idea, get it to a stage where you're actually sustainably running a business with it, okay? And then start exporting,
Yes.
right? Go into the other markets and start exploring. Don't go too early, because if you go, it is expensive. Let's be honest. Like if the minute you start moving out, you may not have your company is registered in Botswana, right? You have employees in Botswana. They may be citizens. Now, if you want to go to Zambia, you need to get work permits. You need to get maybe register a company there. You're going to be paying two companies. So the costs start increasing, right? So you don't want to be going into other countries unless you've got a solid base here that's kind of running. And how do you need a solid base? You've got to develop a good team, right? This is the other thing. I've seen, that one business I told you, which the guy lost trust. It was two founders. They had nobody else they trusted. And when one founder kind of slipped out of the business, this founder decided to pivot and the business crashed and burned. They had nobody they could rely on, right? And they were earning good money,
Yeah.
right? As in, it was a very successful business to the extent whereby, you started proudly talking about this business.
Yeah.
And then suddenly 3 months later, the business is non-existent. So these are lessons that I think I'm learning as an investor as well, that it's true that anybody who invests is going to have businesses that grows.
So if you look at the other markets that have successfully, and I understand the perspective of sandbox and then being able to export, but there's definitely something that they're doing better. And I want to put aside the government aspect of it. How have they managed to grow to that extent, to where there's so many opportunities in terms of when it comes to funding, where you don't have to just consider the banking system? Yeah.
Well, the banking system is not for the startup ecosystem. Let's just be the risk. The risk that banks are willing to take are far smaller than what startups are able to. Banks come in later, right? I would say there's a couple of big things. One is the hustle, right? I don't think we yet have hustle. It's changing, and I think the last 18 months has kind of been an eye opener. And I would say,
probably a product of the economy as well.
Yeah, and I'm also going to say over the last 3 years, this is changing. The reason is people are coming through the education system and they're seeing their brothers and sisters struggling with youth unemployment. It's a wake-up call.
It is.
Right? It's a wake-up call to say this system that has, that they saw with their parents, whereby they went and studied, and after studying, most people got a job, right? Or could start a business and they would be successful. That system has changed, right? So by going and getting an education doesn't guarantee you a job, right? You got to be able to do more.
And
right?
unemployment rate is shocking.
It is shocking and it's unfortunate, but I also think there's an opportunity with that, right? I've seen it in many other markets. If you look at India, India had a huge unemployment issue with the tech sector, and that suddenly boomed the biggest tech sector in the world, right? I mean, they empower the entire tech sector of the globe now, right? Because they had so many people who were trained. So I do believe in an educated, unemployed population compared to an uneducated, unemployed population.
It definitely presents an opportunity. Right?
Exactly.
Yes.
There's more chance of success with this than that.
Yes.
Right? But yeah, coming back to the point, I think the hunger, right? You've got to have the hunger and respect for work, right? For my time, for somebody's money, for where am I going to place and invest that money at the early stage?
Yeah.
The concept of bootstrapping, right? I think these are all, unfortunately, things we're learning now.
Yeah.
We're learning it as a country as well,
Yes.
right? We're learning but as youth and as founders, it's a concept that I see you going to these other markets. You have an idea. There's 30 other people with the exact same idea as yours.
Yeah. So what are you
And-
going to make?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it comes from inside, right?
Yeah.
It comes from inside. If you don't have that hunger and drive, right? Then you're not going to survive.
Nothing will be handed to you on a
And you've
platter.
got to be willing to fail. That's the other side of the mentality that I feel we need to grow in Botswana, is the ability to learn from failure. We fail and then it's like, no, that's it. I'm going to try and find another job.
Yeah.
Right? Most founders fail 2 to 3, 4, 5 times before they actually hit the one that's going to make something.
Right. Is the failure rate high?
Yes, most founders fail first. Right? So they say fail first, fail fast, right?
Yeah.
And you heard those things. But the reality is it's also the mentality of failure is not a failure. Failure is learning, right? Yes, there's money that gets spent, but it's also from that early stage investors place, like parents, friends and family, etc. You invest into somebody's business and they fail. Why they failed is also important before you reinvest, right?
Yeah.
So if they fail many times, they say, I'm not going to reinvest in this guy because he's a failure.
Yeah.
Reality is maybe if the reason was he didn't put enough or she didn't put enough effort into the business, or they started putting money into the wrong things. As simple as, I want an office and I want a fancy computer and I'm gonna, I don't know. I see this is where a lot of people, they get an office and they set it up really nicely.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Unless you're a client-facing business where you have a shop, that is not a priority. If you can, work out of the garage for as long as possible, right? That is the cheapest place to work out of. You want to minimize costs, right? When you're a startup, you want to have as little cost as possible. Only spend on the essentials, right? And that mentality is coming now. I think it wasn't there before.
Yeah.
There was this thing. And to some extent, it's also fueled by the competition scenario that existed, right? Or I'll just win the next competition. And that's going to fund my next 6 months of roadway.
Yeah.
It's not your next roadway of growth. It's my 6 months of roadway of my life, right?
Yeah.
And remember this, the business is separate to yourself. Remember the concept we talked about earlier.
Yes.
So the business isn't funding your life, right? The business can't be funding your lifestyle, right? You are separate to the business.
Yes.
Because if the business starts funding your lifestyle, the business will die. And then what happens? Your lifestyle dies too, right? And so it's, I think when you ask me what's been so successful in the other places, that's one of the biggest things, mentality, right? The hustle mentality, but I think all startups need to have. The second is, I think, the number of role models, right? Successful role models and people out there speaking about their successes. I do feel sometimes in Botswana, people are afraid to talk about their success because they feel if I talk about my success, somebody's going to come out and
become a target.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's on one side. Second side is the number of success stories are still increasing,
Yeah.
right? There's only so many like successful tech startups, right? I mean, there's a couple, like Brastone and like Alpha Direct and these guys who started from bare nothing and have built successful businesses competing in Africa now, right? Those founders need to talk more. And I think many of them are
And
now,
they are.
which is fantastic. But I think they've got to be getting out there. And I think that's one level. So that's the those who started tech businesses and have grown it.
Yeah.
There's also those who are more experienced in the business world. They've also got to get out there. Mentorship. And that's where I think things like Angel Network Botswana, I think, while the money amount that has been invested into businesses, really there's like 5 or 6 startups that have been invested into, right? In Botswana, it's outside the continent, many more, right? But I think the amount of time that's been spent on mentorship and coaching should not be devalued, because I think that's the other area. So I think the role of role models and coaches and mentors, there's so many more in those countries, and they've been doing it for so long that they're really good at it. The third aspect is the accelerator incubator setups. They've been very effective.
Yeah.
Right? As a country, they've been more open to venture studios. I told you 2 weeks ago, I was at this immersion week for this, and I was talking to a gentleman who came with money and funding to set up a venture studio here in Botswana, and had all the meetings with all the right people, and then heard nothing. Right?
Yeah.
The same person says, I took the same idea to one of the other neighboring countries, and they're already enabling me with space and co-funding and a pipeline of startups that are going to go through the venture studio project. That's initiative, taking grab of whatever comes, right? Like, for instance, I know that there's a tech fund that's coming out soon, right? With real money behind it, right? They want to grow a $50 million tech fund. Imagine investing $50 million into the tech scene in Botswana, right? That's a lot of money, okay? It's coming. I'm praying that we take a hold of that opportunity, because what they're saying is, ideally, they'd like to invest into Botswana, but if they can't find enough business in Botswana, they're going to go next door.
That investment somewhere else.
You get what I mean? Yeah. Because investors at the end want to put their money, right? And then nobody wants money sitting in a bank account. No investor wants that, right? Every investor wants it to be active and doing something.
Yeah.
So I think that's the other area. I do feel like the MIT Co-op Sharper initiative that's happening at BDIH, while I know a lot of money is being spent on it, but the quality of some of the businesses that are coming out of that, I was quite impressed, right? So I think there's some good work happening there. I know that there's a few other like incubator and hubs that are set up around. Some of them are spaces only. But I think this is an area that needs to get more energy, right? And if it gets more energy, we'll get better deal flow coming out, right? And the final is, you talked about it, is funding, right? We need an ecosystem where you've got all the areas filled, right? It's tough, especially in a Botswana where where we are all feeling the pinch right now because of delayed payments and lack of liquidity and all of that's happening. And what's the future of Botswana?
The uncertainty.
The uncertainty reduces investment, right? An investor invests in the future, right? They don't invest in your today. They see what you are today, but they see what you're going to be in tomorrow, and that's what they're investing into. And in a country where right now our past is kind of in the past, right, and we don't know where our future is, we're in a tough place right now. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't exist. So I mean, for me, like, the family and friends seed area, kind of some competition, seed money location there, angel investors, VC funds, which I think is a big thing that's missing in our ecosystem. And then the PE funds that come in afterwards. The PE funds exist because there's enough money here.
Yes.
Right? There's enough pension fund money looking for good projects. Right? So much so that they're going to existing projects and saying, please, can we get involved with it? And existing founders who already have a good capital stack and have enough money are not going to ask for more money from a PE fund. Right?
So would you say we're kind of stuck at a certain point and we need to grow entrepreneurs to this level so that they can take advantage of
the next level?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Yes, and I think that's a gap.
Yeah.
That and yes, there are, as I said, there's one called Launch Africa that's a VC fund based out of Cape Town. I mean, they've invested into, I think, over 360 odd startups across the continent. It's unbelievable. The first fund was a $50 million fund. The next one, again, is looking to be another $50 million fund. These guys are putting real money into the continent. The other thing that I am learning is for a lot of people coming onto the continent, for some reason, they put an additional risk premium because it's Africa.
Yeah.
And we've got to change that mindset, right? We've got to change that mindset that because you're coming here to put your money, it's more risky than putting your money in, the Gulf area. I'm talking about the emerging markets, right? And that's something that we've got to project ourselves, and change. But yeah, my hope is that somewhere along the line, and this is where I was saying, I was very excited to hear recently that, government may be changing its support model from a debt model to an equity model, and maybe in this VC space, right? So that angels need an exit point as well, right? Because you want to be able to recycle that money back into the system. And the exit point usually is the secondary markets into VC funds.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'd like to think there's also a life cycle that goes with the angel. At some point, you want to lay to rest because the ecosystem has grown to a point where there's so many people supporting it. You can mature to another type of investor.
Oh, listen, I'm sure every angel wants to say they've made so much money that they could become a VC investor. I think that would be fantastic. And I think that would be a great step when enough angels in Botswana have made enough return that they're able to move up to another level. But inevitably, what I'm talking about is angels like working in the angel space.
Oh, okay.
Right? And the reason I'm saying is businesses can only go so far with what mentorship and angel can provide.
Yeah.
With what networks and angel can provide. Right? So you're going to take it from that small, for numbers' sake, earning 500 to 5,000 pula a month kind of business to earning maybe 300,000-400,000 pula a month kind of business. You take that business to that level, but from there, somebody else has got to pick up that and take it forward to the next level.
So almost there's this thing that they say, well, entrepreneurs are not born, but I'm seeing kind of like almost an opposite. Angel investors are kind of born. It feels like more than just a business. It's almost a passion to say, I want to mentor businesses and build them.
I mean, there's about 40, 50 members in the angel network. Everybody's passionate. And the funny thing is, not all of them come in with money.
Yeah.
Right? Most of them come in with passion.
Yeah.
Right? And I love this change. I love that what A&B is able to do is able to provide a platform for people to kind of practice their passion.
Yeah.
Right? Those of us who've been able to grow in what Botswana, the economy that Botswana gave us, right? And we're able to grow our businesses or grow in the corporate world and develop, a privileged life, and now be able to kind of, I hate to use the word give back because then people think it's charity. It's not charity, right? It's investing. Charity is a different thing, right? Philanthropy is different. But it is giving back experience, time, networks, and money into a system so that somebody else can be successful.
So then doesn't that make the syndicate model perfect in essence? Because you don't have to just bring in money.
Yeah.
It can be your expertise. And then as you come as a group, you're then able to...
There's a model called mentorship as an investment, where, for some people, it's like, I'm willing to give more time, but I don't have capital, right? But I want to give my experience, my networks, and my time to a founder. But I want my time to be valued, right? Because otherwise, I'll be honest, I've also done a whole bunch of, I sit as a VC4A, which is this Venture Capital for Africa. It's a grouping. I'm a certified mentor under it. So I've mentored businesses outside Botswana as well. The number of mentee companies I've had who the first mentorship session happens, the second mentorship session happens, and then suddenly they disappear. I don't know if it's that I'm a bad mentor, but it's also sometimes from what I see, is they just run out of
steam along the way.
Yeah. It's as if they, and I think that I feel kind of like disrespected by that.
Hence, you mentioned attitude is important.
Yeah. Exactly. And you've got to put a value to the mentorship. So that's a different kind of mentorship model that exists. Because what some people did say is, Aditya, I've got great passion, right? And obviously I've got the experience. I've been in the corporate world for 30 years, right? I've been CEOs of companies we all know. I want to be able to give back my experience and my own growth to somebody else, right? But I've got 2 kids who are in university, at school, etc. I've got my own expenses, so I can't be putting money, big money, right, into it. I can maybe put a small ticket, 5,000 pula, something like that, right, into a business. But I can't put more. But I'm willing to give my time, right?
Yeah.
But how does my time get valued? So that's a different style of mentorship. It's not something I've seen in many places.
Yeah.
But it's something that we're trying out in Botswana. I don't know how successful it's been, to be honest. If you ask me,
The Angel Network.
the Angel Network does offer this to businesses. I will say is that you've got to put yourself out there as a business as well.
Yeah.
Right? A big fear I see with a lot of startups in Botswana is if I go and tell somebody about my business, they're going to set up the same business as me.
Yeah.
Right?
Because they've been scarred by the entrepreneurship world.
I hear you, but here's the real truth.
And the agencies and so on.
If you come to a typical Angel Network member, we're so busy with our own businesses and lives, we don't have the time for your business,
Yeah.
We would rather sit and help you make your business successful, right?
Yeah.
So at least with A and B, and I don't know, there may be other, angel networks out there, but it's the only one I'm aware of in Botswana is A and B.
Yeah.
Every person has to sign a code of conduct and a code of ethics and all this kind of stuff. And don't go and complain, there's no funding in Botswana if you haven't given it a real try.
Yeah.
And don't go and say, I pitched once and I didn't get funding, so I'm unsuccessful. As I told you, these other guys were coming from the continent. This may be their 100th pitch, right? So they have tried. Getting money is not easy. It shouldn't be, right? Because it's worth something.
Yes.
Right? If you have, and every time you pitch, you should always get feedback and use that feedback.
Yeah.
Like I would love a founder who's pitched at A and B before 6 months back, come back again and say, listen, here are all the things you told me why you wouldn't fund me. I've fixed it all. What attitude. What a lovely attitude.
Yeah.
Go fix the problems, learn from the mistakes, take valuable insights from everybody who's around you and make something out of it attitude. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Right? But it's been a good journey, to be honest. It's been a learning journey. I've listened to lots of good businesses. I've listened to lots of really not great businesses. The other thing is you have people coming and asking, I want 4 million pula. I'm sorry. You have no revenue and you want 4 million pula. Nobody's going to give you that money.
Yeah.
So also be wise about how much money you're asking for.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe you will get 4 million pula in the end, but you start with 400,000 pula.
Yeah.
Earn their trust, right? Build the business. Show them your traction. Show them that you've used that money that people have invested into you in a really good way. And then take it from there.
Okay. I want us to close with maybe a message to founders and just from your learnings, not just as an investor, but also as an entrepreneur, what is one of the greatest lessons that you can take taken out of entrepreneurship that you'd like to give them?
I think perseverance. If you truly believe in what you're doing, you will persevere. You put in all efforts to make it successful. Yeah. If you're not willing to believe in your business more than everybody else around you, you cannot expect others to believe in your business. Yeah. So persevere, put in the effort, and a business is not a side hustle. It's got to be the real thing.
All right. Thank you so much, Esther, for coming through.
My pleasure. Great. Thank you.